welcome back, listeners, to the BizBlend podcast. I'm your host, Sana, as always, and this is the space where bold conversations meet business evolution. Now, today's episode is for the women leaders who are done with burnout, done with bypassing their inner voice, and ready to redefine the leadership on their own terms. My guest, listeners, has spent 15 years behind the scenes of leadership, building empires for others while slowly losing touch with her own power. But through that lived experience came clarity, conviction, and a whole new approach to power, purpose, and self trust. She is the founder of Powerhouses with Purpose, a movement that teaches women to lead from within without performing, proving, or in fact, people pleasing. And so, if you ever have felt like you had to shrink your truth just to stay professional, this conversation will speak to your soul. So, let's dive into the real talk on embodied leadership, identity rewiring, and values that don't shake under pressure with my guest, Sam Chump. So, Sam, welcome to the show, and I'm really honored to have you here with us.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here.
Sam, let's talk about what exactly embodying leadership means. I mean, you talk about shifting from performing to embodying, and I think our listeners, they definitely they need to explore this. So, what does that look like in action? I mean, what parts of identity must we let go of to make that shift real?
Right. I believe that so much of the conditioning that us as women, stemming far beyond our current generation, it's really systemic whenever it comes to what women have, basically been programmed to believe that, being kind and staying quiet and not making yourself seen unless you're needed for something specific. I feel like those are all examples of wiring that we're all maneuvering throughout our day-to-day life, in our relationships, in our leadership, and in our business, in how we communicate with ourselves. That programming is so thick, and because it is subconscious, it's when we're on autopilot because we're so deep in serving those around us and in showing up for the needs of others that the
Mm,
conversations that go on in our mind, they can be so self-detrimental and really limiting on the power that we came into this life to really embody. And so that programming, I think that's the source of the rewiring that we're all really here to lean into. And so much of that comes from the ability to be present with with our mental patterns, with the habits that we're doing and feeding, whether conscious or subconsciously. Again, so
mm,
much of it happens when we're on autopilot and just so focused externally that we don't realize what's looping behind our eyes. And so I think in really taking ownership of what is playing on repeat is a really big stepping stone in making ourselves more visible, first to ourselves, so that we can remember that we're here too. And
mm.
then that really has the opportunity to change the game for how we're showing up in the lives of others.
Well, that makes sense, and I believe that it's coming something. It's something. It's coming from your own journey as well, Sam, because you spent 15 years, helping other people, making their visions come to life, running their systems, helping them with managing their chaos. Uh, uh, I would love to know, I mean, was there any specific moment or event that made you realize that now you need to focus on yourself instead of, just uh, working or maybe just delivering for others?
Right? I in you know In so much hindsight and in so much reflection over the years, I realized that throughout my entire life, I've been the keeper of chaos. From as young as I can remember, that was the role that I ended up holding for my family. So, within that practice, that just became the archetype that I embodied throughout any role that I held in my life, in my friends groups, which led into my work relationships, and then the clients that I've served along the way. So, when chaos comes up, I'm always the rock. I'm always the grounding cord. And while I wore that as a badge of honor for decades now, it's taken me so many years and so many repeated cycles of burning myself out to the point of getting myself physically sick and incapable of participating with the outside world for 1, sometimes 2 weeks at a time because my mind and my body basically were demanding to shut down in order to recharge. And after dozens of times of doing that, within a 15 to 20-year period, and, people were none the wiser. I come back fully charged, ready to go and dig right back in, and, it's never talked about, it's never, worked through. I would just keep going. And so recognizing that in so many other people, and especially women that I would be partnering with in business and in events that I would manage, and how it was always us that ended up being really the powerhouses on the team, but no one really knew what that meant behind the scenes. And so I think that just in as my commitment to myself and to my well-being deepened and deepened just naturally over the years through passions and other purposes that I explore around wellness and what that actually means for me, I think that, that just ended up being a natural guiding light for me in making changes in my habits, in my mindsets, in my choices that really reflected getting myself out of those cycles. I've gotten myself out of so many harmful cycles throughout my life that it just naturally became time to let burnout be another one of those that I was letting go of via commitment and discipline and dedication, boundaries, and doing it all unapologetically.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so many thoughts coming up in my mind, Sam, because first of all, um, as you explained, from performing to embodying leadership, I think it's definitely an identity level pivot, not just a mindset one. And then we also, as you brought burnout into the discussion, and then you mentioned that how it physically affected you. I believe that the skepticism around burnout is not only it focuses mostly on the mindset one, that I'm mentally tired, or I'm feeling tired, but then your body gives out all these signs and symptoms. I
Right.
mean, uh, and that is like the extreme side of burnout. So it often gets glamorized in the productivity circles, especially in the entrepreneurship circles. But what you have described, it's more systemic. Um, Sam, you emphasize values as a force multiplier, not just a compass. So, when it comes to women leaders, how do they actually root into values? When there is urgency, there's pressure of performing, and then people pleasing. I mean, how all these are pulling them in every direction.
Yeah. I think that as with any big changes in our lives, they have to happen incrementally. They have to happen bit by bit. They have to happen slow, or it's going to shock the nervous system just as much as staying in our places of chronic overcommitment, chronic overperformance. As much as those will take their turn on our bodies and on our minds and on our hearts, so will such an abrupt change as trying to pivot away from those too abruptly. So I think that it has to happen incrementally. It has to happen in just those small things, and in and small things by I mean in paying attention to what triggers a reaction within us. We all know the difference in how our body feels when we're able to consciously respond to something versus habitually react to something. So, even just starting to tune in to what our body is telling us so that we can pay attention to the whispers that are happening from within us before they have to get to a point of becoming these screams. And that's kinda how I relate to what the levels of physical exhaustion, AKA burnout, we can just call it for what it was physical exhaustion. And,
Mm.
so, the body will only whisper for so long until it has no choice but to scream. And so I think it is our responsibility to start letting ourselves quiet down and start letting ourselves tune inward more frequently, incrementally. That doesn't mean all of a sudden go sit on a pillow for 25 minutes every day and think that, that's going to be sustainable based on the speed that our minds and our bodies are so used to going when we get to this level. But actually, just taking a time to take a breath when we're starting to notice our blood pressure rise, or taking a breath when we start to notice that I'm actually feeling nervous and shaky when this person comes around me in the office, and starting to get curious about what your body is trying to tell you about the situations that you're engaging in so that you can know how to better show up for yourself. And in doing that, with time, you learn how to create boundaries that are reflective of your values. If you know that someone is too aggressive in how they communicate with you, that can help you be more aware of values around communication. If, your workload or lack of organization within your workload is something that has you feeling anxiety within your body or has you wanting to emotionally shut down, that's your body guiding you towards something that is a value system that maybe organization is a non-negotiable value that you have in your work environment. So I think that as we start to quiet down and pay more attention to what we need from within, that can help us understand what our values are in our life. And then as we grow in relationship with them, we have more self trust in being able to point those things out. We have more confidence in being able to relay those to other people because we know them more in depth. And then within that, we can literally change our work environment, we can change our home environment, we change the culture that we're creating around us because we're making those conscious choices to slow down and look within and respond differently.
Absolutely. And then when it gets done at the individual level, especially from a leadership perspective, I believe that it gets reciprocated within your teams as well.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. In understanding, and this is a truth of mine at least, and life has shown me this time and again that, it's said that we're a reflection of the people that we are around the most. And for a lot of times, just because of, again, our culture and our relationships with work and with business, a lot of times those people tend to be those that we're in work collaboration with. And so if we're seeing ourselves simply reflecting the people around us and we know that we don't like how that feels, it's our responsibility to choose something differently. And then at that point, the stronger that we stand that ground of who we actually want to be, the people around us will naturally either begin to reflect that shift or they're just naturally organically going to fade away and be replaced by those who are capable of doing so.
True, true. And Sam, I also want to bring in the work you are doing through Powerhouses with Purpose. I mean, whenever I'm just not making it obvious, but just a quick touch of what instantly comes to our minds. When we hear about leadership, that um, it uh, you know it sides towards more of a masculine idea, aggressive, strong-headed, determined, and like with the hard values. But whenever we try to connect or bring in women into leadership, it's often it focuses more on the soft values and the soft skills.
Mhm.
So you have built powerhouses with purpose to help women reclaim their leadership identity, which is absolutely empowering and inspiring. So what's one truth you believe that we need to anchor into instead?
I think that we I think that we as women leaders anchoring into the belief that choosing nurturing actions such as incorporating rest, incorporating our intuition, and incorporating our ability to nurture those around us. I think those are superpowers in creating cultures and work environments that are more conducive to us all being able to show up as the versions of ourselves that we're capable of. I think this horse trainer mentality that we've experienced through generations of, you know, do something wrong, get punished. Do something well, be rewarded. I believe I'm witnessing those types of leadership becoming outdated and that people are less and less open to staying in those toxic environments. And I think that it's gonna mean a rise in confidence for women leaders to be able to go in and have our natural superpowers come through and really help nurture those superpowers from other women so that we can come in and both do, but also be the change that these cultures need.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with you on that, Sam. Because that's such a the name itself, it's powerful, and I feel like so much of reclaiming power is unlearning before we relearn, and others can also learn from us.
Absolutely. I love that. Unlearning before we relearn. Yeah, it has to happen. We have to it's like taking inventory of our house, you know? We have to clean things out and consciously make room for what we want to invite in, and it's a system just like the others.
Truly. And I also would want to bring in some nuance into this. Um, I mean, you have said that alignment is more important than ambition. Um, and what about women who they want the top titles? I mean, they want to get into that visibility, that limelight, the place.
Mhm.
Mm. Can y- oh yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
Oh, I my, the I'm sorry, the immediate thought within that is just because we can celebrate our feminine superpowers in leadership doesn't mean that we have to do so at the expense of putting away ambition. It's
Mhm.
just not giving up alignment for the sake of ambition. So, in creating a balance, in creating a rhythm, it's not a damn the man so that everything can be soft and gentle and only nurtured. It's not about hand holding everyone. It's not about, you know, focusing more toward emotion and less toward structure. It's about having both. And I think that the scale has been tipped for so long far to the side of the masculine environments that we've been, you know, forced in one way or another to operate within. I think it's more about, again, integrating more of the feminine aspects, but definitely not from a place of don't strive, don't achieve. It's not black or white. It's about really alchemizing the situations that we've been taught are the only way.
That's beautifully said, son. Beautifully said. And this is not from a gender perspective. I think even,
Right.
everyone has that sacred feminine and masculine energy.
Absolutely.
It up
Absolutely.
like, that aligned ambition. Uh, these are like intersection. These are blending in there. So that's a really beautiful aspect, perspective in there, Sam. And of course, if our listeners, especially all the entrepreneurs, all the founders and leaders, if they would like to get in touch with you and explore more about the work you are doing through Powerhouses with Purpose, what would be the best way?
Yeah, I mean, reaching out through the website is wonderful. You can learn a little bit more about the services that I'm holding space for women leaders through. That's powerhouseswithpurpose.com. I have links to connect via clarity and connection calls. I also have the beta launch of my 6-week mastermind program, the Mindset Mastery Accelerator, that'll be kicking off here in August. All that information can be found on my website. I'm also on LinkedIn, both at Sam Jump and Powerhouses with Purpose. And you're also welcome to send me an email at any time. That's samjump at powerhouseswithpurpose.com.
Wonderful. I'll make sure to have all the links and details in the show notes. And Sam, this is such a constructive and very, very insightful conversation. I mean, this was more than a leadership conversation, it was a reclamation. And thank you so much for not just sharing your story, but for modeling what it means to lead from power, not pressure.
Mm. Yeah, I'm so thankful to have had the chance to connect with you, and I hope that everyone's able to walk away with something that stirred in them.
Definitely, definitely. And thank you to all of you listeners for being a part of the BizBlend podcast. Um, if today's episode stirred something in you, take that as a sign. Leadership isn't about pushing harder, it's about becoming more of who you already are. Until next time, keep leading bold, grounded, and on purpose. This is BizBlend, and I'm your host, Sana. Thank you.